What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. 2 years passed since the announcement of partial mobilization by President Putin, and with big degree of certainty, we can say that it has become indefinite. The contracts that Russian soldiers sign are endless. Technically, while signing up for the service, you only have a 1-year contract, but the catch is that it renews automatically, and you cannot simply cancel it. Almost the same as when you sign up for a service online, and then in order to cancel your subscription, you have to call the company, listen to hours of jazz music while waiting to be connected to the representative, just so that this person redirects your call to somebody else, leaving you alone with the jazz music for another hour. The purpose here is to exhaust you, so you give up and be like, well, it's only $14.99 per month and I get to watch some TV channels from Bangladesh, so it's not that big of a deal. I'll leave it as it is, my time is more valuable. The idea behind Russian military contract is more or less the same. Trick you into signing it and then make it nearly impossible to cancel it. With one big difference, is that here it is not the question whether you lose $14.99, it is whether you might lose your life, and probably will. The initial partial mobilization was presented as a temporary measure, yet it has evolved into indefinite commitment, affecting countless families across the nation. This was a widely unpopular move by the Russian government, which made the smartest and the brightest minds even leave the country. For the others, it created never-ending distrust between the regime and the people. They first promised that the special military operation will only last several weeks, at most. Well, they lied. Then they promised to never send conscripts to the front lines. They lied as well. The next promise that was broken was that there will never be a need to announce a mobilization, so no wonder when Russian men were signing temporarily 1-year military contracts, they eventually faced two choices: be forever left in Ukraine, or to fight for as long as possible until you either become choice number one, or to let your friends and relatives fight for you in courts and get you out of Ukraine. Neither of choices were chosen by those Russians, and neither of them could have been altered by them. Who are even these mobilized soldiers? I'm not talking about volunteers who signed the contract themselves. I'm talking about those unlucky 300,000 ones who got caught 2 years ago, and those conscripts who were forced to sign the contracts as well. The latter ones are especially the worst-case scenario. Through lies, deception, threats, blackmail, or even physical abuse, they were forced to leave their autograph on literally their own death sentences. Here, by the way, a very important paradox appears. Why would a person knowingly decrease their long-term chances of survival close to zero in order to avoid the immediate punishment, which is nowhere near closest to be severe? This is the paradox of intangible threat, and we'll talk about it in more details in a couple of minutes, guys. Very interesting topic, so stay tuned. So, these Russians eventually were sent to places they might have only seen on a map. For some living in the far east of Russia, distant cities like Hanoi in Vietnam might feel closer than regions such as Krasnohorivka and Chasiv Yar, where they are now expected to risk their lives. Before February 24, 2022, Ukrainians and Russians lived without the shadows of war looming over them. There were some signs, but at least homes were not destroyed by shells and bombs, and families were intact. And now, mobilized soldiers are forced to sacrifice themselves in a conflict that brings immense suffering to both nations. Putin wanted to stop the chaos and bring peaceful life, but he ended up stopping the peaceful life and bringing chaos. The new law on electronic summons we talked about in our previous video is crafted to exploit the very basics of human instincts, particularly how we assess familiar and unfamiliar tasks, or commonly known tangible and intangible threats. Political strategists are well aware of these tendencies and have constructed a system that manipulates our perceptions and decisions. And today you will understand this paradox as well. Basically, the law leverages fear and familiarity to compel individuals to act against their best interests. So here how it works. Consider the way we perceive workplace safety regulations. Despite the obvious dangers in certain professions, individuals often overlook risks due to familiarity. Truck drivers, for example, are equipped with devices to prevent excessive driving hours, yet some still push beyond safe limits, risking fatigue and accidents. Similarly, workers inside high-rise buildings might neglect safety harnesses, trusting their experiences over caution. This paradox is not due to a lack of understanding, but rather a cognitive bias where immediate, familiar consequences overshadow distant, unfamiliar ones. Because if a truck driver does not deliver the goods on time, he will be punished. His salary might be compromised, or he might be even fired altogether. A very familiar event that he or definitely some of his colleagues went through. But having a life-threatening accident? Well, that's something very few experienced. Definitely not the driver himself. Well, otherwise he will not be working anymore, ever again. So yes, the truck driver might know that if he falls asleep, there is a possibility of this happening, but since it never happened before, it is better to focus on avoiding more routine problems, which might happen weekly or monthly, such as being scolded by your boss, for example. In the context of electronic summons, the immediate consequences of ignoring them are just legal penalties, fines, or social prohibitions, such as travel bans, losing driving license privileges, not being able to take the mortgage, and, well, similar restrictions. And these threats feel more tangible than the distant and unfamiliar reality of warfare. You might even hear the horror stories from the front lines, but as long as you never participated in them personally, for you this is just something unreal. Well, dangerous? Yes, but this is still an intangible threat. They might even know that the probability to be killed or injured is around 90%, but all of them think that they are the exceptional 10%. That's why the law is designed to make the penalties for non-compliance immediate and severe, manipulating individuals into prioritizing short-term safety over long-term well-being, or even survival. It is crucial to confront the harsh realities of military conscription under the current regime. Once an individual appears at the enlistment office, they enter a dead-end system where formal protections are virtually non-existent. Conscripts have been sent to active combat zones despite official statements that no conscript will ever be engaged in such activities. It happened during the initial invasion. It happened during regular combat activities, Kharkiv offensive, and even Kursk incursion. Conscripts participated in every major event of this war. At the same time, instances of abuse, forced contract signing, and even fatalities within training facilities have been reported. So some young, 18-year-old Russians who just finished high schools and played video games like, World of Warcraft or Fortnite literally last week, are now dealing with life-threatening situations. And they might still be inside Russia. These are not bloodthirsty orc invaders that are shown on TV or in FPV drone footage compilations. These are kids who had hopes and dreams, maybe even as little as just getting a gear upgrade to their night elf druid character in the video game. And definitely not running side by side with criminals in meat assaults on Chasiv Yar. Yes, you can simply surrender to Ukrainians, and some Russians do just that. But the officers make it clear that surrender is worse than death. That if they do it, and if they're caught by Russians themselves, their life is pretty much over in either meanings of this word. Or who knows, maybe a battled, frenzied Ukrainian who just lost his comrades will not see anything besides rage in front of his eyes and think that a surrendering Russian is still an enemy who needs to be eliminated immediately. Well, as you can see, it's not that simple. Wars in general are not very simple things. While it is easy to start it is extremely complicated to end it. The military environment in Russia operates with a high level of disregard to civilian life. Legal protections and complaints that citizens take for granted are ineffective within the system. You might write a negative review for a company and then later be contacted by the manager to see what they can do better, or even be offered discounts for a chance to redeem themselves. If you complain in the Russian military, you are just setting up yourself for even worse conditions. You might end up being first on the list for the next meat assault, because, well, somebody got to do them. And these are the prime candidates for the Russian officers. no person, no complaints. And later you can always tell the relatives that their son died heroically defending the freedom and democracy of Novoprokopivka, with the population of 300 people. Nobody will be able to investigate the true cause anyways. Ignoring the struggles of the mobilized soldiers and their families is both unethical and harmful to the very fabric of the society. Treating these individuals as mere statistics or dismissing their experiences undermines the very principles of compassion and humanity. If we don't care about the struggles of regular people on both sides, what makes us better than Putin, who started all this mess? Yes, we want Ukraine to win, that's not even a discussion, it is a fact. But the type of victory we want is the destruction of the regime of Putin and the retreat of the Russian forces, not the never-ending grinding war which will take hundreds of thousands of lives on both sides until something unexpected happens, the war ends like nothing happened, and those responsible will not even face any consequences. It is not the war between Russians and Ukrainians, even though it is done with the hands of these very same people. It should be treated as the war between Putin and basic human values and dignity. The world, led by Russians themselves, should take the regime down. This is the only way. It is imperative that individuals take proactive steps to protect themselves and their loved ones. Solidarity becomes a powerful tool in this context. By sharing information, supporting one another, and raising awareness about the manipulative tactics, we can collectively influence the situation. And yeah, not too many Russians watch my channel according to my statistics, but the world is small. You spread the message with your friends, they do the same with their own friends, and eventually the idea will reach the minds of at least some Russians. This is not about political affiliations or ideological differences, it is about, literally, preserving lives. The Russian government strategy relies on isolating individuals and exploiting their fears. By fostering a community that is informed and supportive, we can mitigate the impact of these tactics. Every person who avoids unjust conscription is a life potentially saved, a family kept whole, and a step towards a more consciousness society. Well, there you have it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Please like this video, subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. If you wish to support my work, there are links down below. And see you tomorrow.
We won't succumb to their tricks, the facade they try to sell. Their twisted words and feeble claims on us all they cannot quell. We see through their lies, their feeble attempts to sway. We do not believe in ridiculous Russian propaganda.